Major new solar deals have been announced that's going to be adding a tremendous amount of solar energy to the grid in the United States. The Department of Energy has issued a report that outlines three different ways to get to net zero or 100% renewable for the island of Puerto Rico. And there's new technology being tested that keeps birds off your solar array. Well, I'm Jay Warmke with Blue Rock Station, and this is the news from the solar industry for the week of January 30th. Okay, well, one of those announcements that's adding a lot of power onto the grid from solar is a deal that was announced between Q-Cells, which is a German manufacturer of solar panels that was established in 1999, and Microsoft. And the deal is for 2.5 gigawatts of power for Microsoft that they'll be purchasing as part of this agreement. Now, that's enough power, the equivalent of about 2 million homes, just to give you a sense of perspective there. Now, Microsoft has announced plans that they're not only trying to get carbon neutral, but carbon negative by the year 2030 from all of their operations. Q-Cells will not only just be providing the panels on this project, but they'll also be doing the engineering, the procurement, the construction. So basically, they'll be project managing the entire program there for Microsoft. Another big energy manufacturer, not manufacturer, but installer of renewable energy, Nextera Energy, which is the parent company of Florida Power and Light and are, in fact, the single largest developer of renewable energy in the U.S. Well, they announced that in 2022, they deployed about 5 gigawatts, which is, again, about enough to power 4 million homes of solar. They invested about $19 billion in 2022. And apparently it's good for business because they also announced a 14% growth in earnings. As a result of all of this, they are planning on deploying a significant amount of solar over the next 4 years. They're saying about 32 to 42 gigawatts of solar that they are going to be installing over the next 4 years. The Department of Energy released a report or a study that found that they outlined three different ways to get the island of Puerto Rico to 100% renewable power by the year 2050. Now, the island has suffered some weather-related events that have really devastated the grid in recent years, including a hurricane. So what they're looking at is how to create a very resilient, but also a carbon planet-friendly grid. So they did pass a law, it's called Act 17, in which they're to get to 100% renewable by the year 2050. There are interim steps there. By 2025, they need to get to 40%, and by 2040, they need to get to 60% renewable for the island's grid. And there's a new technology that's being tested to keep birds away from solar arrays. Now, oftentimes, you wouldn't think that's a huge problem, but around coastal areas or places where birds congregate, it can be a significant problem. They are attracted to the heat from solar arrays that are on rooftops. They do nesting underneath the solar array, so it provides a nice habitat for them. So they can often congregate in great numbers on these arrays. In fact, the droppings and the birds themselves on the array can cut production by as much as 50% on some of these where there is a significant number of birds. They also, you've got the cost of cleaning up after these guys. Also, there's damage to the panels. Many of these birds are pretty large and not exactly gentle with the technology. And the bodies of the birds, the feathers, the droppings can block drains on the buildings, causing leaks in the roof. So it's a big problem. Now, traditionally, what people have done to try and scare these birds away is, putting up fake owls or fake eagles or whatever. They also have propane cannons that go off to try and startle the birds away, shiny discs, streamers that are out there, audio noises that go off, and these pretty much all prove to be ineffective over time. One thing that does work is what's referred to as gull wires, and this is a network of wires that are suspended above the array. They can be high enough where you can walk through and do maintenance and the like, but the birds don't like to fly underneath these wires, so it does keep them away. Although there's some shading issues there, there's infrastructure costs. So what the industry is doing is testing out a new technology. This is something that's been used in agriculture for a while, where they're using laser beams to essentially duplicate what this network of wires looks like to the birds. The light beams look like a solid object to the birds, and so they don't want to fly underneath of it, but there is no infrastructure cost there, just the lasers themselves. Where this has been tested, they've seen decline in bird populations around the array by as much as 90%. And that's the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.